Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the conflict between the Attorney General in Georgia and Fani Willis. A lot of people view prosecutions through the prism of partisan politics.
Mhm.
I try not to, but it does seem in Georgia that R versus D is always the pivotal and determinative factor. So, Fani Willis, she has the affair. There's a motion to recuse her. The trial court says we won't recuse her, but man, was that stupid. And
Interesting.
Trump appeals and says you must recuse her because of the appearance of impropriety. One problem: appearance of impropriety is not supposed to be a reason to recuse a prosecutor. Actual financial conflict would be, and the argument had been, but it wasn't very strong, that Fani Willis, in her relationship with the head prosecutor, somehow was profiting financially. They would go on trips and he would pay for the dinners or something. She said she paid him back. But be that as it may, the trial court ruled sensibly that that's not any kind of conflict because it's unreasonable to think that she changed her prosecutorial tactics or her duties weren't in any way affected. And that's what matters. There's no way in which you can say by hiring Wade, the prosecutor, she somehow created a conflict in herself. You can imagine other situations where, basically if you don't do your job fully, you make money. That's a conflict. This wasn't. So McAfee, the judge there, said, I'm not going to recuse her, but either she or Wade got to go. You can't have them both together. And they did have this sort of tawdry 3-day hearing going through all the details. When did they meet and who paid for what? And really had nothing to do with nothing because there wasn't a financial conflict. Be that as it may, he said, I'm not going to recuse you from the case. Trump and many of his co-defendants, remember this is the 18 or 19 defendant RICO.
So I like how he's re-summarizing his case and giving a high view of what all happened, hitting the major points. I just don't think. I feel like the appearance of impropriety and the financial advancement, I think those are just kind of being swept over. Like, you gotta literally hand me a $20 bill, not that I get $20 worth of something by way of another avenue. To me, that's and it's true. What the way he's addressing it and the way he's handling it is very solid, and I think he's doing a great job at that. I just don't think that I disagree with how it's being handled. The appearance of impropriety and financial advancement seem to be just kind of being ignored. But let's go.
Case appeal to say she should be recused, and I think it's 2-1. Georgia Court of Appeal, first they kind of put it on ice and no one knew what was happening, and then they came out with opinions saying that in fact, yes, she should be recused. It was really a poorly reasoned opinion. I have a Substack entry on this from last week where they basically say, I know it's always supposed to be a real conflict, not in the appearance of a conflict, but this is the rare case in which it isn't. For really no more persuasive than that. And the dissent exposed that, said we've got 43 cases that stand for the proposition you cannot do this unless there's a real conflict. There are 43 cases that say so, that say you can't reverse a trial court decision for not recusing unless you have a bona fide actual conflict, not the appearance. And the majority just doesn't answer, just doesn't address that point, which is looming over the whole case. Okay, so that sets it up for Fani Willis to now appeal. She's
Of
the
course.
Court of Appeal
Of course
says
she
she's
is.
got to be recused. That sets it up for her to appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court. And that's what she is planning to do. And now, yesterday, here comes the Georgia Attorney General, a Republican. And again, as this case developed, I talked to a lot of people down there, and they were really adamant that, It's just a total war. Georgia itself, remember, is totally purple. And
No,
what
it's
that
not.
basically means is Fulton County, Atlanta, blue, 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 and surrounding red. And so the figure of Fani Willis is especially a lightning rod for the Republican elite in the state. So the AG comes out and just basically inserts himself in the case and tells the Georgia Supreme Court, don't take this case. Lawfare has become far too common in American politics and it must end. So, all these fights over politics and prosecution, and it's part and parcel of, the claim that Trump and his circle have been prosecuted for political reasons. It's just gone too far and it now must end. Why? Or why now must it end? Or why at this very moment does it mean that the DA's office, which represents the people and like any other litigant, but more so because of its public interest function, should be able to have the full hearing within the Georgia judicial system? Well, it's just gone too far, and we have to stop it now. Fani Willis returns fire, and Carr figures in. Everyone figures in this sort of hothouse of Georgia politics in the dispute below. There are Republicans and Democrats, et cetera, in a small role. So first she said he's a witness here. This is totally improper. But then she charges this is all about his politics for setting himself up for the coming primary. So here's what Willis says. He's a witness in the case. And apparently he's more focused on the politics of the 2026 Republican gubernatorial primary. So this guy, Chris Carr, is looking to be the governor rather than the law. If Mr. Carr cannot separate his ambition to become governor from his duties as Attorney General, he should resign and focus on being a full-time candidate rather than serving as a constitutional officer sworn to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States of Georgia.
Okay, I actually believe that persons running for offices should stop working in various sundry offices, especially if they're stepping out of a role that they're in and they're campaigning for another role. I do think they should commit. They should commit by stepping out of that role and running for it full time. I actually think that's a smart way to handle it. I don't think that that's ever going to happen, and I don't think that it necessarily muddies the water. I just think it shows that, hey, I'm so committed to this, I'll quit my job to do this full time or whatnot. But
so it's a backwoods kind of political fight where the AG is cloaking himself in some kind of piety about let us just stop this warfare in the country. But really, it's a dig at Fani Willis, who not just the Republican elite, but the Republican rank and file in Georgia don't like, as I understand it anyway. But it's certainly the sort of red blue politics are intense. The purple here is red and blue, and they're not always alloyed. Anyway, so you have the very strange picture of the Attorney General, who really has nothing to do with anything in the case, just telling the Georgia Supreme Court, don't hear it. Now, the Georgia Supreme Court, my understanding, is solidly Republican, and I don't think politics just go away at that high level. But I can't imagine they're not hearing the appeal. That would be totally, derelict and bizarre. I can very easily imagine they're affirming the Court of Appeal, and what would happen then? Willis would be out. That's the last stop. They're authoritative in Georgia. And then it would go to this whole supposedly nonpartisan process of reassigning the case. But man, oh man, this being the case and Trump being president and all the kind of huge mess that it's been ever since the revelations of the relationship between Wade and Willis, you wouldn't want to bet a Georgia peach a bag of Georgia peanuts, whatever you bet in Georgia, that the case would be revived. If she's really
Hot
ordered and
Takis.
recused, it's affirmed at the Supreme Court level. You kind of have to think that as a practical matter, even though in theory it goes to another prosecutor to at least evaluate, you got to think that it's probably the end of the road for the big RICO Fulton County prosecution, which of course affects not just Trump, but his 17, 18 co-defendants, half in Georgia, but also Ken Chesbro, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, the whole gang. So the state AG weighs in, says, don't take the case, raw politics. They probably will take the case, but they may well affirm. And then it's anybody's guess whether the case ever revives or not. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe.
Sure.
Talk to you later.
You got it, brother. Grace and peace. All right. I thought that was actually a really good summary, a highbrow summary of what's been happening in the Fani Willis case up to now. Because again, there's been a lot of new movement, if you will. So I thought that would be a good summary for that. So I appreciate y'all, every last one of you, for checking in. Thank you so much for liking the video. Thank you so much for subscribing, helping me hit my goal of 50,000 by April 31st of 2025. We're better than 18,000 away. So let's get at it. Everybody, thank you so much. And until next time, grace and peace.